одно чудное мгновение передо мной явилась ты, как мимолетное видение, как гений чистой красоты. Today I'd like to give a speech about my favorite Russian poet, great novelist, and the founder of Russian literature, Aleksandr Sergeyevich Pushkin. First, I was introduced to his poetry when I was at school, and I really loved the book that's called Стихи Pushkina, and it was one of the favorite ones on the bookshelf. I remember I was always amazed, how could this possible? How could it possible to write such romantic poets? They are just like an easy butterfly that settle on the flower and leave you in such a romantic ecstasy. Aleksandr Sergeyevich Pushkin was born in a poor family, but noble one, and of course, as for everyone sitting here, childhood was the most important stage in his life. His parents were not ideal and not the perfect ones. His father got really quickly irritated, and his mother mostly spent her time partying. But the most magnificent person in his childhood, the most influential figure in his childhood was his nanny, Ariana Rodionova. And he writes, «Я ждал тебя в вечерней тишине, и ты являлась веселой старушкой, рассказывала истории в этом шушуне, в больших очках и с резвой гремушкой». So Ariana Rodionova helped him not only to shape him as a gentle person, but also she input the love to poetry and great storytelling. Another important stage of his life, it was when he went to the Tsarsko-Sельskoye Lycée. He actually began writing poems when he was only 7 years old, but he got really admired and followed by his comrades in Tsarsko-Sельskoye Lycée. And once, when he was only 15 years old, he recited a poem, and at this event, Derzhavin, one of the greatest writers at this time, Derzhavin was present. And when he heard his poem by Aleksandr Sergeyevich Pushkin, he got so much impressed and excited. At that moment, he understood that he discovered a new talent, a genuine talent in Aleksandr Sergeyevich Pushkin, that he wanted to run to him and hug. But Aleksandr Sergeyevich Pushkin was really modest, and his poems were so intimate that he just ran away, and no one could find him. The Lyceum time was very important, and where he met his extraordinary friends like Pushkin, Kuchelberg, and his friends were so important to him because he helped him to identify himself as a poet who admired, followed, and he felt this support from them. As he graduated, and he was not actually a great student, and which is not a big deal, as you can see, because he wasn't good really at mathematics and logics, but he was just brilliant in literature and French languages. And that implies us, and that tells us that grades do not show and do not portray our inner talent, our uniqueness. And so he was only 24th out of 29 students, but by the graduation time, he got really famous among the writers and poets. After graduation, he felt freedom. He thought, oh, okay, no strict rules, no these high walls of the Lyceum, so I could create and express himself. But he was too naive, because at the time where he lived in the monarchy and this really strict regime, of course he could not express himself freely as he wanted to. And for that, he even wrote like short epigrams to Aleksandr first. Can you just imagine how brave he was to be against the Tsar regime? And most of his friends, unfortunately, with the decabrists, and he dedicated most of his stories and most of his poems to his beloved lifelong friends. So he was exiled to the south of Russia, but they wanted to ruin his moral, his strengths. However, what happened, he even became more productive in that time. So Ruslan and Lyudmila, Boris Godunov, his most prominent and most the greatest novels and books were published were created at that time. Of course, they were not published because they were restrained from the publicity. So the most magnificent moment when he met his wife Goncharova, and he just truly fell in love, and that's the best, one of the most famous love poems. He says, исполнились мои желания, тебя ниспослал мне Творец, моя Мадонна, чистейшей прелести, чистейший образец. What woman would resist such poems and such a charisma? And so they instantly fell in love and they got married. But she was a fatal femme in his life, the little lady, because she was admired not only by Pushkin, but she had lots of admirers. So he had to protect somehow the honesty and the grace of his woman, and unfortunately he died in a duel with Dantes. So 5 lessons that, not 5 lessons, but the most important lessons that we could learn from Pushkin is to love what we do. He started writing from his childhood and he ended about yes, I see it. So thank you. So he started writing poems and from the childhood, and till the death, he did what he really loved to do. So be yourself and never betray your inner soul. Thank you.